Sri Lanka is known for its beautiful beaches and lush inland rainforest. However, during the past year, it has become more synonymous with the looming economic crisis, which some people had in fact predicted. To be honest, more than a few people actually foresaw it and acted accordingly, getting their affairs in order and investing wisely. Today, we are discussing how, when Sri Lanka's economic crisis exploded, some people were ready with generators and cryptocurrencies. Stay tuned. First up, what instigated the crisis? Let's see. Well, the island of 22 million people has been through the ringer over the past year after a serious shortage of foreign cash has thrown the country into chaos. Gotabaya Rajapaksa, the Sri Lankan president, and his government have been unable to put up the cash needed for much-needed imports, including fuel, which has led to mass inflation. But how has it come to this? The crisis is one of the worst in a long time and can be traced back to the government before the current one, which means two sitting administrations are just as culpable or incompetent as each other. Both governments can be accused of creating a twin deficit, a budget shortfall coupled with a current account deficit. A 2019 paper explained that twin deficits signal that a country's national expenditure exceeds its national income and that its production of tradable goods and services is inadequate. But not to worry, the Sri Lankan government decided that deep tax cuts were the order of the day, which unluckily came just before COVID hit, which hit the economy hard. And in a country which also heavily relies on tourism, their economy has been left in tatters. The country's debt management program also derailed, and foreign exchange reserves dropped by more than 65% in 2 years. And then the government decided to ban all chemical fertilizers, which had a huge impact on the country's farm sector. What have you made of Sri Lanka's economic problems? Next up, let's talk about those forward-thinking Sri Lankans. There is something to be said about the Sri Lankan people, and that is how well they prepared for this crisis. Of course, many people saw it a long way off, which was a blessing, and decided to act. And some people even decided to invest so that they could actually profit from the crisis. And why not? It's usually banks and governments profiting from a crisis, so props to the people for thinking ahead. And one economist based in the capital Colombo spoke of how it was obvious as early as November 2020 that the country would slip into decline. Saliya Gunasinghe, a Sri Lankan citizen, also said, quote, "I began taking large rupee-denominated loans in 2021. I work for a foreign firm and earn dollars. I was able to borrow in rupees at a reasonable interest rate. I took loans and bought real estate, anticipating a crash in the value of the rupee," unquote. He went on to explain that when he bought his apartment, the dollar was 200 Lankan rupees, but now is closer to 370, which he says is to his benefit as he could end getting his apartment for peanuts. And there are many other stories like this. The cryptocurrency space also saw a lot of speculation too, and one trader, Prashan Loganathan, said that people could see a mile away how badly the central bank was doing, so decided to convert their savings in stable coins such as USD-T. Are you a crypto holder? Let us know below. What else happened? Stick around to find out. Well, as some people did manage to convert their money into crypto, they are now sitting pretty. But those who didn't are probably beginning to regret their decision, looking at the state of the economy right now. But some of those who didn't get in on crypto did decide to look at another avenue, commodities. Those who saw the crisis coming decided to plow some of their hard-earned cash into things such as sugar, flour, gas cylinders, and other essentials, which looks like a perfect investment now, given how the prices of these products have skyrocketed. And one trader even revealed that he was now selling some gas cylinders he bought last year for 4 or 5 times the original price. Insane. But some people had the forethought to do what was needed, simply out of necessity. When people are in a situation where they are living hand to mouth, it is sometimes difficult to see a week ahead, let alone a year down the road. But there were some Sri Lankans who decided to install generators, as they saw the looming crisis coming a mile off. There were also those who got solar panels installed, which in a country which experiences plenty of sun is a home run, and their decisions were vindicated, as some parts of the country are now experiencing blackouts up to 13 hours a day. And those who got in on this from the start should really be commended. So what do we know about their foreign debt? Stay tuned to hear all about it. Well, it's not good. As a relatively poor country which has a GDP per capita of USD 3,852, this crisis is set to hit the citizens and the government pretty hard indeed. And with just $2.31 billion in their Federal Reserve, they will be sweating with an outstanding debt repayment of $4 billion in 2022 alone, which is pretty insane. Of course, their overall debt is far higher than this, and it is thought their International Sovereign Bond, ISB, accounts for most of their debt, at around $12.5 billion. But that's even before their other debts to countries such as Japan and China. The situation isn't good, and they will be hoping and praying they will be able to restructure their debts somehow. The IMF has even suggested that the situation has risen to unsustainable levels, saying that their foreign exchange reserves were not nearly sufficient for debt repayments in the near future. And some institutions have also suggested that the country needs to restructure their debt, of course, in one of the most obvious recommendations of the year so far. What do you guys think of Sri Lanka's mounting debt? Give us your thoughts below. What is the Sri Lankan government playing at then? The government has run pretty big trade deficits for quite some time now, but the majority was supposed to have been paid back over the past couple of years. Of course, the global situation has put a stop to that, but the plan all along was for the government to pay 90% of its entire budget this year off of its debt. And one economist at the University of Colombo said the government refused to accept the reality of a default. They went on to make a series of policy decisions that further exacerbated matters. This crisis has forced the country to reevaluate their state reserves, of which it has been proven over the past year or so are nowhere near sufficient. And the government, who should have seen this coming or at least gotten rid of their economic advisors by now, should also take the blame for not attempting to restructure the debt a long time ago. Of course, they have no capabilities to import necessary goods anymore, as they simply do not have the budget, so have now been forced to rely on the international community for handouts, which is a huge shame. What do you make of the government's response? Next up, what does all this mean for India? Stay tuned. Well, all this will intrigue Sri Lanka's closest neighbor and third biggest trade partner, India. Of course, Sri Lanka is losing mass amounts of trade, which will only serve to benefit their neighbor, which is one of the strongest economies in Asia. Not only are they benefiting from increased tourism thanks to hotels and resorts in Sri Lanka not being able to guarantee power, the country is also benefiting from the apparel sector crisis. A lot of apparel orders, from the EU and UK especially, have been diverted to India, with the Tirupur district in India benefiting most. The move by India, which has been criticized by Sri Lankan officials, could signal the end of Sri Lanka's apparel industry, as India is providing a solid option at the moment. It is thought Sri Lanka lost around $1.4 billion in 2020 thanks to companies partnering with India firms, which is huge as it accounts for 44% of exports and 33% of jobs on the small island nation. The apparel industry also accounts for a large portion of the country's foreign exchange, which means that if the industry continues to decline, which it is looking like it will, then this will mean the foreign reserves shortage situation will only get worse. And thanks to the situation in Sri Lanka, India is set to boost its apparel exports as they rake in more and more orders. What do you guys make of India's response to the crisis in Sri Lanka? Let us know below. As always, thanks for tuning in today, and remember to stop by next time for some more fun and games. And why not do us a solid by liking and sharing today's video with any economists or friends who you think might be interested in this sort of thing. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss out on more interesting content going forward. Bye guys!